Tonight on the program, Pattaya prepares for the mayoral election, but what are the structural problems in the famous beach city? Then why is Thailand's clean air bill going nowhere? And is there any hope for press freedom when threats are everywhere? สวัสดีค่ะ I'm Nad Bunag and welcome to This Week with Thai PBS World. As Bangkok heads towards the gubernatorial election on June 28th, Thailand's famous beach town of Pattaya is also preparing for the mayoral election on the same day. Unlike other provinces across Thailand, where their governors are appointed by the central government, Bangkok and Pattaya are the only two cities where residents can vote for their leaders. The reasons why Bangkok and Pattaya need to be self-governed are mainly because of their economic importance and urban challenges. Bangkok is more than just a capital city. It is the center for almost everything, from politics, education, business and finance to transportation. Covering more than 1,560 square kilometers with a total population of at least 10 million, Bangkok has rapidly evolved into a megacity. Its challenges go beyond the capacity of the conventional provincial administration system. The Bangkok Metropolitan Administration Act of 1985 established a unique governance structure under which the city's governor is directly elected by residents rather than appointed by the central government. The reason why it needs to be separately managed involves its complex infrastructure. Apart from its heavy traffic congestion, Bangkok operates an extensive urban transport network, including the BTS SkyTrain and MRT systems, alongside one of the world's largest concentrations of high-rise buildings. Addressing these challenges requires rapid decision-making and a specific budget that conventional provincial administrations do not have. Also, issues such as urban flooding require the management of sophisticated drainage systems, flood tunnels, and coordination among dozens of agencies. Bangkok's special status allows it to maintain its own legislative body, which is the Bangkok Metropolitan Council, which can enact local regulations tailored to the city's needs. For the upcoming elections, former Bangkok Governor Chatham Sittipan is standing again against 17 other candidates. The most notable contenders include Anucha Burapachaisri of the Democrat Party, Chaiwat Sathawon Vichit of the People's Party, Malika Bunmi Tragoon Mahasuk, and Mom Luang Gon Kasiwat Gasemsi. While Bangkok serves as Thailand's center of political and economic power, Pattaya is also an internationally recognized tourism and economic hub. Tourism generated more than 239 billion baht in revenue for Pattaya in 2018, accounting for roughly 70% of the city's income. Managing a city that welcomes more than 14 million visitors each year requires flexibility in overseeing beaches, entertainment districts, and environmental resources. Apart from tourism, Pattaya handles approximately 450 tons of waste every day and must operate extensive wastewater treatment systems. The Pattaya City Administration Act of 1978 was designed to provide the city with the authority needed to manage these challenges more effectively than a conventional municipality. In terms of economic development, Pattaya now plays a central role in Thailand's Eastern Economic Corridor, or the EEC, which is home to major infrastructure projects such as high-speed rail links and seaports. Pattaya's special administrative status enables long-term urban planning, which aligns more closely with national economic goals than the traditional provincial structure of Chonburi. Like Bangkok, the mayor of Pattaya City is directly elected by residents, allowing local leadership to respond more effectively to the city's unique challenges. For the Pattaya mayoral elections, there will be 5 candidates competing for the top seat, but most eyes are on these 2 major candidates. Parameet Ngam-Pichhet, who is standing again for Pattaya's mayor, and his main contender, Ithiwat Wattanasathsathorn, representing the People's Party. As for their election pledges, the former Pattaya mayor, Parameet, aims to develop the coastal city under the theme Better Pattaya, which will continue the missions that he instigated during the past 4 years. His 33 policies cover the local economy, tourism, and the environment, while Ithiwat announced 37 policies to improve the quality of life of citizens as well as the floating population in Pattaya. The highlights include developing the city as a safe tourist destination to attract foreign tourists back into the city, while also establishing 24-hour childcare centers. So this is simply an overview of how Bangkok and Pattaya are self-governed as well as their priorities. Residents of these cities can both choose their city leaders through local elections, and whoever is elected will become the city's leaders for 4 years. Apart from choosing their leaders, voters in Bangkok and Pattaya will also elect members of city councils who are responsible for providing a check and balance on their leaders, including deliberation of regulations as well as budgets. Looking at the roles and responsibilities, on the surface, the Bangkok governor and the Pattaya mayor both have to set policies for city development, and that also includes infrastructure, transportation, environment, education, and to improve the quality of life of their residents. The major difference is that the Bangkok governor oversees the whole system of the national capital. This includes addressing traffic, urban flooding, and city planning, while the Pattaya mayor is mostly focused on tourism, the local economy, and the coastal environment. Although Pattaya is part of Chonburi province, the city is granted independent management rights. Despite Bangkok and Pattaya appearing to be self-governed with local elections taking place, some critics feel that both cities still face significant constraints. Both Bangkok and Pattaya still rely on budget assignments from the central government, which means that both cities remain under the shadow of a centralized bureaucracy. Some aspects of city management also still rely on various central government agencies, which limits the governor's ability to solve major problems independently. Traffic management in Bangkok, for example, requires coordination with both the police and the transport ministry. Another example is if Bangkok declares the city to be a disaster zone when PM 2.5 dust pollution reaches dangerous levels, the BMA lacks complete autonomy to manage such crises as it remains tied to the central government as well as the National Environment Board. Pattaya itself also faces limitations in environmental and coastal management, as these areas often require the approval or support from central or provincial level authorities. So it might be fair to say that the administrations of both Bangkok and Pattaya are not as truly independent as they might seem. Looking only at Pattaya, the infrastructure also needs a massive overhaul. In this report, we find out what needs to be addressed and the challenges ahead, especially in terms of security and city planning.
Pattaya is known for its bright lights, nightlife, and tourism. But after last month's fire at a hotel, a tougher question is being asked. Is the city ready for an emergency? Safety, emergency response, and urban planning have now become key issues in the Pattaya mayoral race, especially in crowded communities where narrow lanes, dense buildings, and shop signs could obstruct rescue efforts. For residents and business owners, Pattaya is both home and a source of income. Many now want urgent economic stimulus measures, especially for tourism, as the city enters the low season and foreign arrivals decline.
ก็แก้พวกปากท้อง ส่วนมากแม่ค้าก็บ่นกันทั้งนั้นเนี่ยขนาดรถพ่วงยังบ่นเลยมันเงียบไปเกือบ 40% เลยอ่ะ
Some restaurant owners say business has slowed, but what's helping them are the measures to ease alcohol sale restrictions.
จากการที่มีมาตรการปลดล็อกขายเครื่องดื่มแอลกอฮอล์ช่วง 11 โมงนะคะจนขายได้ยาวไปจนถึงเที่ยงคืนเนี่ยคิดว่าจะเป็นการกระตุ้นเศรษฐกิจในเมืองท่องเที่ยวเป็นอย่างยิ่งเพราะว่าปกติแล้วเนี่ยถ้าตามร้านอาหารหรือว่าตามสถานบาร์เบียอะไรทั่วไปเนี่ยช่วง 11 โมงถึงบ่าย 2เนี่ยเราขายแอลกอฮอล์ไม่ได้แต่พอปลดล็อกแอลกอฮอล์ปุ๊บมันก็เลยคิดว่ามันจะทำให้ธุรกิจเนี่ยไหลคล่องตัวได้มากกว่าที่ผ่านมาค่ะ
On the campaign trail, Paramet Ngampishet traveled around Pattaya with his city council candidates, starting from Pattaya City Hall and moving towards Balihai Pier. His rival, Itiwat Watanasa Sathorn from the People's Party, also campaigned across the city with his council candidates. Both candidates have spoken about the need to improve safety and bring more order to urban planning, especially in walking street.
ตอนนี้ถ้าเมื่อกี้สังเกตนะป้ายของร้านค้าต่างๆเนี่ยจะแนบกับตัวตึกแล้วนะครับเพื่อไม่ให้เป็นปัญหาเวลาเกิดอัคคีภัยเนี่ยที่รถที่จะเข้ามาได้อันนี้คือประเด็นที่หนึ่งที่เราได้ดำเนินการไปแล้วนะครับมีการดำเนินการในส่วนของสร้างความเป็นแลนด์มาร์คเปลี่ยนป้าย walking street ใหม่ที่ทำไปแล้วแต่ส่วนในเรื่องของความเป็นผังเมืองที่บอกเนี่ยในส่วนของ walking street เองเนี่ยก็มีการเข้าไปดูแลในส่วนของการใช้กฎหมายควบคุมอาคารเรื่องของผู้ประกอบการเนี่ยจะต้องมีทางหนีไฟมีเรื่องของวัสดุที่ไม่ลามไฟอันนี้มีการดำเนินการอยู่แล้วนะครับ
แล้วก็มีมาตรการของดูความเรื่องของความปลอดภัยไม่ว่าตอนนี้นักท่องเที่ยวเนี่ยใน walking street เนี่ยมันมีหลายชนชาติหลายแบบหลายรูปแบบแล้วมีคนทำงานด้วยเพราะฉะนั้นความปลอดภัยเป็นสิ่งสำคัญสำหรับเศรษฐกิจการท่องเที่ยวของเราถ้านักท่องเที่ยวเกิดความไม่ปลอดภัยเนี่ยมันก็จะเกิดปัญหาได้เพราะฉะนั้นเราก็ต้องมีมาตรการของการบูรณาการระหว่างตำรวจแล้วก็อำเภอแล้วก็รวมถึงเมืองพัทยาในการสร้างความปลอดภัยเขาด้วย
For Pattaya, the next mayor will face two urgent tasks at the same time, bringing tourists and income back and making sure that the city is safe for the people who live, work and travel there. Gitipat Sukhchit, Thai PBS World.
Apart from the infrastructure, another important issue affecting people's quality of life is air pollution. The only hope for Thais right now is the Clean Air Bill. Many political parties and civil networks have proposed their own versions of the Clean Air Bill, yet progress remains stalled. A recent seminar discussed the obstacles that are keeping the Clean Air Bill from the statute books. Here's more with Gitipat Sukhchit.
Every year, Thailand waits for the same warning. The dust pollution is back. Schools close, children wear face masks, hospitals see more patients, and people ask the same question. Why does clean air still feel like a privilege, not a basic right? Thailand's Clean Air Bill could be a turning point in the country's long fight against PM 2.5, but it is still only a draft bill. It has yet to pass the Senate process before it can be added to the statute books. The bill was revived after the earlier legislative process was interrupted by the dissolution of Parliament. MPs later voted overwhelmingly to move it forward. Supporters say this shows that PM 2.5 is no longer just a seasonal problem. It has become a perennial national issue. Associate Professor Dr. Kanungnisi Boyiem, a lecturer at the Faculty of Law, Chulalongkorn University, says Thailand's air pollution system still relies too much on old thinking. One major problem, though, is a misunderstanding among some policymakers. Some believe Thailand already has enough laws and that a new law will only add a greater burden.
Other things to be managed. Another thing is that the government seems to get used to the old approach of the so-called, we have so many laws in this country already, we don't need another new one. But what if another new one will come to reform the old bad ones? We should add the last portion also. Otherwise, people get stuck to the phrase that, oh, we have too many laws already, and that's it.
Supporters of the bill say the current system is too scattered as different government agencies work under different laws. Several measures are short-term, such as bans on agricultural burning, monitoring vehicle emissions, and public warnings. These may help during a crisis, but they do not always stop pollution at its source. Danaipat Pokawanit from the legal team of the Thailand Clean Air Network says another misunderstanding is that the bill is seen as a burden on the state and on businesses. The strongest resistance appears to focus on economic measures, including clean air fees and a clean air fund. These measures follow the polluter pays idea. In simple terms, those who create pollution should carry more of the cost, not ordinary people who have to pay through poor health. Danaipat says the bill is not designed to punish all businesses. It also sets up committees with representatives from the state, the public, and the private sector.
มันคือการที่จะออกแบบนโยบายกฎหมายที่อยู่บนพื้นฐานของการคำนึงถึงผู้มีส่วนได้เสียทุกภาคส่วนอย่างเป็นธรรมนะครับเพราะฉะนั้นจะไม่ได้มีการลักษณะที่จะไปเอาเปรียบผู้ประกอบการอย่างแน่นอนเราไม่ได้มุ่งเอาเงินท่านโดยที่ท่านไม่ได้มีความผิดถ้าท่านไม่มีความผิดท่านก็ไม่ได้รับผลกระทบแล้วก็กลุ่มผู้ประกอบการรายย่อยก็ตามที่อาจจะกังวลว่าจะได้รับผลกระทบก็ต้องบอกว่าเราแทนที่เราไม่ได้มุ่งหมายที่จะไปกระทบต่อท่านมิหนำซ้ำเนี่ยเราจะมีกลไกในเชิงเศรษฐศาสตร์ที่จะเป็นแรงจูงใจอุดหนุนท่านทำให้ท่านเปลี่ยนผ่านพฤติกรรมจากก่อมลพิษไปสู่พฤติกรรมที่เป็นมิตรกับอากาศมากขึ้นด้วยซ้ำไปครับ
But if these key parts are cut out, campaigners warn the law may have no teeth.
สิ่งที่เป็นอุปสรรคก็คือในตอนนี้ในการพิจารณาของชั้นกรรมาธิการของสวเนี่ยก็มีกรรมาธิการบางท่านหรือมีเสียงมาจากกลุ่มภาคธุรกิจบางกลุ่มที่เริ่มจะรู้สึกว่าอยากจะให้ตัดมาตราที่สำคัญเหล่านี้ออกซึ่งอันนี้จะกลายเป็นปัญหาเป็นวิกฤตของร่างพรบอากาศสะอาดแทนที่จะช่วยแก้ปัญหากันกลายเป็นว่าถ้าท่านตัดสิ่งเหล่านี้ออกมันจะกลายเป็นวิกฤตยิ่งกว่าเดิมเพราะจะทำให้พรบอากาศสะอาดออกมาไม่มีเครื่องมืออะไรเลยที่จะเปลี่ยนผ่านพฤติกรรมต่างๆแก้ปัญหาก็ไม่ได้และผู้ก่อมลพิษก็ยังก่อมลพิษต่อไปแล้วคนไทยก็ยังต้องแบกรับต้นทุนทางสุขภาพอย่างต่อเนื่องต่อไปครับ
We cannot compromise that easily and then lose the whole value. We cannot do that really. It's better to learn and try to learn what is what and how to work together, how to move forward for the future and the new technologies, the new knowledge and new understanding, the new approach. I think it's not that difficult to learn.
Even if the bill becomes law, the work doesn't stop there. These experts suggest that clear bylaws must be written and related agencies must work together to combat air pollution. They also hope that once the law is in force, Thai people could gain fundamental rights to information, participation, remedies, and legal action. And in the long term, Thailand could have a more unified system with a clearer lead agency and stronger public participation. Kittipat Churnsukjit, Thai PBS World.
All right, and now let's have a look at the other stories making headlines throughout the week in our weekly roundup. Thai citizens across the country went on a spending spree on Monday, which was the first day of the Thai Choi Thai Plus co-payment scheme. Over 26 million people applied for the scheme, generating spending of over 4 billion baht during the first 2 days. The scheme is aimed at alleviating the financial burden on Thais as a result of the global energy crisis. Former Prime Minister Thaksin Shinawatra is now a free man who can travel overseas without having to seek permission from the authorities following the granting of a royal pardon on Her Majesty the Queen's birthday on June 3rd. He is also no longer required to wear an electronic monitoring device, which he has been required to wear since he was released on probation on May 11th. The Commerce Ministry has stepped in to help southern shrimp farmers by attempting to secure new markets after Malaysia temporarily banned imports of 5 shrimp species from Thailand effective June 1st out of safety concerns. Representatives of southern shrimp farmers suspect that the Malaysian ban is not due to health concerns, but is in retaliation after the Thai Fisheries Department recently tightened screening of sea bass from Malaysia following the discovery of chemical and antibiotic residues. Police in Kanchanaburi province have taken fingerprints and fluid samples from a pickup truck driver and 3 Buddhist monks for forensic examination as the investigation into the death of a 7-year-old girl escalates. The victim went missing last Saturday and was later found dead in a bamboo grove within a rubber plantation about 600 meters from her parents' home on Monday. And now let's turn to the story. Right now is the most dangerous time to be a journalist, especially those in conflict zones and where democracy is in decline. This is a strong statement from Jody Ginsburg, the CEO of the Committee to Protect Journalists. In our special interview, we find out what global media can do to protect press freedom, and most importantly, is there still light at the end of the tunnel for those in the field? Since you're the CEO of the Committee to Protect Journalists, can you provide us an overview of global press freedom today and how worrying is it right now?
Well, unfortunately, this moment is the most dangerous time to be a journalist, certainly in the 40 years that the Committee to Protect Journalists has been working. More journalists were killed last year than have ever been killed in the 3 decades that we've been doing documentation on such killings. Journalists are being arrested in record numbers. Journalists are being harassed in record numbers. And so being a journalist is more precarious, more dangerous, more difficult than ever. And of course, it's a time when we need journalism. We need fact-based information more than ever because we're being flooded with lies and misinformation and disinformation.
It's interesting how you mentioned that right now, it's the most dangerous time to be journalists. Is there a specific region that is most worrying right now?
The reason it's the deadliest time to be a journalist is, of course, because of the conflict in Gaza, because of the number of journalists killed by Israel since October the 7th, many of them deliberately targeted. And of course, journalists are civilians. They must never be targeted in war, and that is the most dangerous place to be a journalist is Gaza. But it's not only in war zones that journalists are at risk. Journalists are increasingly at risk in places that are not at war, not in conflict zones. They're being targeted and attacked covering political rallies, for example, and political protests. They're being demeaned and degraded by politicians, those in power. They're being harassed online. So it used to be the case that journalists were most under threat and press freedom was most under threat in authoritarian regimes. And sadly, that is no longer the case. Journalists in democracies, including here in Thailand, are increasingly at risk.
Right, and what issues have been contributing to a huge decline in press freedom, whether it's in the US, in Asia, or in other countries around the world?
Well, there are a number of factors. So one is the decline that we're seeing generally in democracy and democratic norms. Journalists are often the first people, if not the first people, to be attacked when democracies decline. And that's obvious if you think about it, because if you are a would-be autocrat, if you want to control the political narrative, the best way to do it is to go after the journalists. We saw this, for example, in Hungary with Viktor Orban. Going after those who are reporting the truth, reporting facts that you don't agree with, those are the people that you go after when you're seeking to control the narrative. So the first reason, and one of the most pressing reasons, is this attack that we've seen from the very top, from leaders including Donald Trump in the United States, who's called journalists enemies of the people, in order to make ordinary people doubt the trustworthiness of journalists. And then, of course, that follows through. You see not only journalists harassed by those in positions of power, but then harassed online by ordinary people, then physically attacked. And of course, once you've created the conditions in which people think journalists are not only untrustworthy, but potentially criminal, potentially even threats to national security, you create the conditions in which it's much easier for them to be actually criminalized, as we've seen with people like Maria Ressa in the Philippines, for example.
Right, and since you just mentioned U.S. President Donald Trump criticizing the media, journalists, and have started cutting funds for public media, so why does journalism seem to be much more vulnerable, even in countries like the U.S., where many people would have this perception that it's supposed to be a free country?
Well, it's a free country, and the United States has always prided itself on having the First Amendment, which protects the press. We have seen a concerted effort by Donald Trump since his first administration to discredit the press, to discredit those reporting critically on him. Now, in this second term, we've seen him move from just simply smearing the press to legal threats against the press, to increased regulation from his administration against the kinds of organizations and institutions that he doesn't like. We've seen big legal challenges against institutions like ABC, the New York Times, and others. And what, of course, makes journalists increasingly vulnerable in this moment is that we've seen a huge decline in the kind of financial model that used to support journalism. So we're all working with fewer resources and a much more precarious situation. And if you have spent a long period of time creating an environment in which journalists are considered to be untrustworthy, you also don't have the public support. And so that all of those things make journalists and media institutions much more vulnerable, including, unfortunately, in places like the United States.
So how journalists in the U.S. are struggling through this crisis?
Well, many journalists are struggling because it's very new to them. This is not an experience they've had before. They're struggling to see how you can both cover the current administration but also be critical of it. Many times we've seen journalists struggling to work out how you defend journalists in the moment. An example is the number of times that Donald Trump has openly criticized particularly female journalists. You may remember earlier this year he said to one journalist, one female reporter from Bloomberg, who asked him a question, his response was, "Quiet, piggy." He frequently tells journalists, including CNN journalist Caitlin Collins, to smile. And what we often see is those kinds of very obvious misogynistic outbursts towards female journalists are met with silence from colleagues. And so I think journalists are really struggling to work out how to speak out publicly in this moment, both in the moment, but also generally about press freedom. And of course, many journalists are very, very worried about their own status. In places like the United States, which has cracked down hugely on immigration, journalists who are not American citizens are worried about being potentially evicted for writing critical articles. We know of journalists who are asking for their bylines to be taken off, particularly student journalists, because they fear that there might be retaliation from the government. So many journalists in this moment, I think, are struggling with how to meet the moment but also continue to do their jobs effectively.
Looking ahead, what gives you so much optimism about the future of journalism?
I'm optimistic because no matter the threats, we continue to see people coming into this profession. We continue to see people, young people, moving into this profession. We've seen people who are willing to report and go on even the front lines because they know how important information is. They know how important it is to have access to truthful, fact-based information. And so what makes me hopeful is that people continue to do that because they know how important it is. And that's very exciting.
At the end of the day, journalism still plays a huge role in democracy. And that's all for this edition of This Week with Thai PBS World. Join us every Friday at 10 p.m. only on Thai PBS. You can also follow us on social media and our website, thaipbsworld.com, for all the latest stories and analyses about Thailand. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next week. สวัสดีค่ะ